With Ghost of Tsushima being one of the most highly awaited games of the year, it's no surprise that people jump on any news. What's been making waves recently is the news that the game is likely to be pretty hard. This has people on both sides of the discussion pretty salty. On one side you have gamers kinda like me, who feel that the game has been presented like a Japanese Witcher. It's supposed to be a narrative-driven game. On the other side, you got the guys that love things like Sekiro and Dark Souls. Now, I actually respect both points of view. I think there's a reason we still talk about Dark Souls this far down the line, and there is something to be said for beating a game on its max difficulty and that feeling of overcoming a challenge equally. And this is one of my main concerns, and I feel like it may have been poorly worded by the guys that are against the high difficulty settings. If a game is mostly narrative driven, it ruins the immersion, at least in your first playthrough, to die 40 times in every major encounter. I understand the idea of just get good, I get it, but if the point is experiencing the story, I feel that you lose some of that in the difficulty. If you're pulled out of the game, if your immersion is ruined by the difficulty of the major encounters, that's an error if it's a narrative-driven game. Now, I like the idea of multiple difficulties. I like being able to see that this is the difficulty the game was intended to be played on, but you can play it lower or higher. I like being able to go through a story, enjoying it, finding that peak difficulty for me where the game is still a bit of a challenge. I'm not acing everything. I'm still having to work for it, but I still get to enjoy the story and it's not ruining my immersion. And then when I'm done, coming back and beating it on Grounded, on Crushing, going for that challenge. That's really the discussion that needs to be had. And this is the real question. If the game has been presented like a narrative-based game a la A Witcher in Japan, should the developers who knew that that was the case and still made it more like a Dark Souls catch slack for it? It is important to know that the creative director has come out and said there are difficulty settings. You can put the difficulty up and down. My major concern is that they're using difficulty in the game to artificially extend the game's runtime. For example, The Last of Us, it's largely agreed that game's about 8 hours long. If you play it on Grounded and you're an average Joe, it's probably more like 15 to 20 hours. Now, is it okay for The Last of Us? I know it's a game from 2013, but is it okay for them to bring out a game and say, oh, this is a 20-hour game? If you're an average guy playing on Grounded, I think that might be misleading. And it's a worry for me because I'm really excited about this game. I'm really excited about the idea of playing a Witcher-style game in Japan. I like the idea of running around like a 70s samurai flick. I love the idea that you can turn things black and white like a Kurosawa movie. I think there are some incredible touches. What I don't want to see is a game that should be 40 hours long actually be a 20-hour game that just takes you 2 hours to beat every major encounter. If I want a game like that, I'll buy Dark Souls. I'll buy Sekiro, because that's how they were marketed to me. Now, I appreciate there are two sides to every story. And look, let me know what you think in the comments. Should people just deal with it and deal with the fact that not all games are easy, not all games have to pander to the lowest common denominator? And I appreciate that. I wish games wouldn't do that. I wish there wasn't super easy difficulty. Easy mode on a lot of these games is too easy. Their hard modes aren't that hard. And this is a problem that games have. Like, when hard mode is just adding HP to enemies and taking HP away from you, I don't think that's more challenging. I think that ruins immersion. I want my enemies to be smarter. I want them to attack more frequently. I want them to work as a team. I want them to, on easy mode, if you throw a grenade, they kind of look at it and explode. And on hard mode, they throw it back at you. You know, I want them to flank me. I want them to do stuff like that. I want them to be more difficult because they act differently, not because they have more health and do more damage. And this is something that we have to look forward to, I hope, for next gen. But for now, we have to ask the real question, which is, if a game has been presented one way and it comes out another. I appreciate they're putting in difficulty settings, but if easy mode on this game is like hard mode on most other games, should we reasonably be annoyed by that? I think if the disparity in difficulty is too high, then yeah, actually there's a case for gamers to be reasonably annoyed by this. If it's one level's difference, if easy mode on this game is normal in most others, and it just scales up like that, I have no problem with it. My worry is the way it's been presented. A lot of these games are handling their social media and their online presence really poorly. How difficult would it be to say this game is going to be challenging and fulfilling? There are difficulty settings, and if you just want the story, we have a mode for that. I think The Witcher did it pretty well. although I still think the enemies aren't as difficult as they could be, mainly because they just add HP and do more damage. I want my enemies to be more difficult to fight. They can keep the same HP, they can keep the same damage, just act differently. That's really what I want from a game. I'm not expecting that from this, but I'm also not expecting Dark Souls. Let me know what you think in the comments. Thanks for watching, like and subscribe for more Ghost of Tsushima content. Coming soon.